Merħba l-episodju ieħor ta' Leħnek, episodju ieħor ta' Meet Your Candidates ma' ħadd iżjed ħlief mal-kandidat tal-Volt Matthias Portelli. Jannes, o xek?
Iwa.
Alright. Mela.
Fisser John ta' ġifieri.
Alright. Li xtaqt insasik l-ewwel ħaġa palma nagħmel il-kulħadd. Min huwa eżattament Matthias Portelli?
Domanda vera interessanti ħajdu hekk. Mela, għandi 21 sena. Mill-Andriet Rabat imma palissa ngħix raħal ġdid, hemm differenza vera kbira. Interessani ħafna politika, il-lingwi klassiċi u s-sikurtà, għalhekk qed nistudja Sant nagħmel Masters f'International Security f'Praga. Domanda vera interessanti, ma nafx x'issa ngħid eżatti. Min jiena? Żagħżugħ, nħobb ħafna politika, insomma. Qed noħroġ l-elezzjoni, insomma xtaqt ikun iktar ċittadin attiv ngħidu hekk. Forsi nagħmel parti tiegħi għas-soċjetà, hopefully n-nies ma jidhiqux bija. Għax nemmen insomma meta provajt nara fejn nista' eżempju mmur biex nagħmel iktar kif tgħid impatt. Irrajt li forsi iktar politika nista' nagħmel xi ħaġa interessanti hemmhekk u iktar forsi nkun għaddat tal-jiem.
Mela Mattias, ovvjament il-Volt huwa partit pjuttost ġdid. Ikkontestaw l-ewwel darba l-faħħar elezzjoni ġenerali.
Eżatti.
Tista' tispjega forsi għal min ma jafx daqshekk eżattament x'inhu huwa l-Volt u x'inhu huma l-prinċipji ta' Volt Malta?
Mela. Mela aħna bħala partit aħna ovvjament Volt Malta, parti minn Volt Ewropa, il-European Group tagħna. Għandna xiex bħalissa 31 branches across Europe. 27 of which are in the EU.
Ġifieri anke li mhux fl-EU hemm ukoll
Ukraine, Albania, UK, ħafna. X'postijiet oħra onestament insejt eżatti fejn huma. Kemm naf li din kbirna sa 31, we're trying to branch out to Colombia and Iceland and somewhere else in Scandinavia. We're running in 12 to 15 EU states because we're trying, the end goal is to have our own political faction in Parliament, obviously based on what Politico was saying, with the rise of the far right and the decline probably in support for the Liberals, the Greens, and the Social Democrats, let's be real. Forecasts we're aiming for at least 6 to 10 seats, which would mean Malta would actually gain 6 more seats, as we have the same manifesto, same values and same pillars, and in fact 2 of our current MEPs, 1 German and 1 Dutch, they actually were directly talking and trying to work on policies which actually helped a lot more. Like for example, Damien, the founder of the whole party, actually he was the one who changed the asylum office to an agency.
All right, okay.
And he actually came down last year to meet with some ministers and also with the local branch and to see the camps. And he talks a lot in favor, for example, for a common migration and asylum system for burden sharing. So he's one of the main advocates for migration. So when they say, for example, you're quite new, in reality, you've been also helping, to do some change in Parliament. Sophie, she talks a lot about corruption vis-a-vis Malta. She's with the Liberals, and we'll see so. Our stances, or our values, we're progressive, we're pragmatic, and also we're pan-European. So what do I mean by this? Obviously, I just told you we have 31 branches, same manifesto with the same MEPs. We also believe in Eurofederalism because the goal is, as we know, the EU was founded from the Human Declaration, and the idea from the founding fathers was to actually have a federal kind of Europe. Obviously, we're not there yet, but we have to work towards it to solidify it. So if you check our policies, they're grouped actually into 5+1. The 5 are smart states. We have economic renaissance to develop more the economy sustainably. Mux kif jgħad eżempju ġili tisma fuq il-regrowth to degrowth tal-affarijiet. Għanna kol fuq global balance for sustainability and also better foreign policy. Citizen empowerment, because obviously if you want to drive something, it's not just top-down approach, but also bottom-up approach. Then also we have about social equality. We care a lot about social issues, and in fact in Malta, based on the climate we have to emphasize more on the social dimension sometimes. Then these policies basically across Europe, we have roughly the same stances, but then we apply them based on the needs of the member state. So obviously we're not just European mindset, we're also like caring deeply about the transposition of it all. Then the plus one is EU reform. We're all working together then for the European election to like have the same message and work for the same goals. So while our manifesto, some critics might say we're too European. Yes, because it's a European election, you have to have a European mindset. We're not yes men, and so we're quite critical of the EU drastically. I think from the rest of the parties, we're very vocal and much skeptical and somehow quite realist in certain things. But the idea is like we work together cohesively, and that's how we try to like, you know, go around the problem. Sometimes like, for example, Labour, they're SND, PN, they're EPP. ATPD, they'll have to go with the Greens probably. When they're going to go with other, meeting other parties, they have to sometimes forego certain national values or their own party values. That's the problem in somehow. We won't have that issue because like we have the same set of principles, same set of values, and that's also why we want to down the line go for our own faction. As the forecast is, probably we'll go with the Greens or with the Liberals, and I think we're going to end up with the Greens EFA. If we do that, probably, and we actually achieve 6 to 10 seats, Volt will have a higher voice and bigger say in that group. Ġifiri, we'll be doing much more, you know, in Parliament.
Semmejt il-Volt jemmen f'Ewropa federalista.
Iwa.
Tista' tispjegalna eżattament x'inhu l-vantaġġi ta' Ewropa federalista?
Mela aħna ħafna mid-drabi nisimgħu ħaġa net, ngħidu hekk insomma. Federalizmu bażikament qed nirreferu aħna livell Ewropej ma' livell nazzjonali. Mhux qed nitilfu s-sovranità, anzi għandha iċ-ċittadin. In-nazzjon aħna nafu fil-politika insomma għandek it-terminoloġija tan-nazzjon tal-Stat. Jfissru affarijiet differenti. In-nazzjon għall-poplu u stat il-pajjiż, l-idea tal-pajjiż. In-nazzjon il-poplu anzi għandu livell ta' drittijiet aktar billi meta konniex fl-Unjoni Ewropea. U fl-Unjoni Ewropea qed naraw aħna għandna shared sovereignty, rights and of the state also. So when we go for l-idea ta' federalizmu mbagħad, iċ-ċittadin mhux se jitlef xejn. L-identità tiegħu hemmhekk tkun, anzi tissaħħaħ kif qed naraw diġà fl-Unjoni Ewropea, ma ovvjament għandna bżonn naħdmu aktar fl-atti tal-kultura, eżempju. Fin-naħa ta' stat imbagħad għandek shared sovereignty of governance. Bażikament, nafu wkoll aħna fil-prinċipju ta' subsidiarity li ċertu problemi, ċertu kwistjonijiet, ċertu topics għandhom bżonn jiġu indirizzati fil-livell li actually jagħmel l-iktar impatt biex jisolvija jew biex jirrelata ma' din il-problema. Issa aħna eżempju nafu ġieli wkoll, eżempju foreign policy, defense, climate change, migration, certain level of outside trade. These have to be tackled on a European level. Malta, Italy, Germany no longer can actually work on their own. Issa meta ngħidu mbagħad ukoll aħna għaliex jekk tinnota ġielek il-lingwaġġ li nużaw aħna biex nikkomplejnjaw kontra l-gvern jew kontra eżempju l-Unjoni Ewropea qed innutaw li subconsciously aħna actually nirridu federalizmu x'qed ngħid biedi. Mela aħna nafu eżempju konna problema eżempju fit-toroq quddiem id-dar tmur il-kunsill lokali inti. Problema eżempju fl-edukazzjoni like elettora fiskejja jew ma nafx, ġieli nkomplejnaw eżempju fuq korruzzjoni, immorru nkomplejnaw lill-Ministri jew il-Prim Ministru ġieli. Jekk jisma'. Issa aħna ħafna mid-drabi tisma' eżempju, ġieli tgħid eżempju imma l-Unjoni Ewropea mhux qed tisma'na jew għaliex eżempju fuq tal-abort probably ħadd saqsini fuqha. Jekk ġieli rajt eżempju ġieli videos tal-Lavel Morton għalija. Ġieli eżempju marru jintervju jisaqsu nies fit-triq, eżempju, imma għaliex eżempju l-Unjoni Ewropea m'għandix eżempju titkellem fuq l-abort. Jew għaliex eżempju x'qed naħdmu aktar fuq l-immigrazzjoni, din mhux l-Unjoni Ewropea tgħid eżempju tgħidilna x'għandna bżonn nagħmlu dal-affarijiet. Ġifieri subconscious aħna qed inħossu li ċertu problemi jew in-nuqqasijiet tal-Gvern nazzjonali għandhom jiġu indirizzati minn Gvern Ewropej. Ġifieri at this point we're just a ticking time bomb till actually get there and actually finally for some reason feel a bit better to actually give it the label.
Pero ħan semmilek, semmejt l-abbord f'dan is-sens. Inti taħseb li l-Unjoni Ewropea għandha jkollha kompetenza fuq l-abbord jew taħseb li dik għandha tibqa' issue nazzjonali?
Naħseb bħalissa di issue ovvjament nazzjonali. Ġifieri aħna mbagħad eżempju jekk hopefully nitla' jien ukoll bħal kandidati l-oħra ovvjament aħna whatever way we go with in terms of our stance on abortion, we can only influence or put pressure or not on the government. We can't really legislate from the European Parliament on health policy. It's not really part of the remit. And I think even from a federalist point of view, certain things, they work more on but concentrated nationally. You can see with Germany, you can see with the US, etc. So I think in this, like, we can only put pressure as of yet. And then we have to focus on tackling it for the time being, at least that's what I think from so far, nationally.
So, ħanerġa t-sammilak l-abbort. X'inhu eżattament il-policy, x'jemmen fuq l-abbort il-volt?
Aħna nemmnu, like, for the first trimester, you should have the opportunity for abortion. So we also know, like, thanks to also Doctors for Choice, the main kind of abortion is actually through the pill. It's a high percentage. Don't quote me on this exactly. Għal-Malta anke in ġenerali. Like, actually, it's like around 80 or 90% mill-li actually jużaw il-pinnola, mhux actually.
Imorru kliniku.
Eżatt, jew kif jgħid eżempju pizza party, ġielek eżempju l-fitu sammulaw, le. But inti normalment tgħaddi anti. So for the most part, it's a pill. Da is-stress kollu qed nagħmlu aħna għall-pinnola. Issa, żewġ pinnoli, issa biex ngħid ismiet, onestament palissa nsejthom għax għandhom isem like komplikat u vera technical, imma din fil-manifest li għadda kif ukoll policy fuq like sexual and reproductive health rights, and we go really into detail about our abortion stance and what kind of pills we also are pushing for. Issa, aħna mbagħad għandna eżempju f'każijiet, imbagħad eżempju ħajtek eżaqta fil-periklu, mbagħad lejn l-aħħar mbagħad wara the first trimester, then you should also have the right for the clinical side of it. We're mainly pushing for the pill. And in conjunction with this, obviously, support also for, like, if you end up having this, you know, like, you have support to help you out, the criminalization and legislation of it. Also, we're talking about better sexual and health education classes, because God forbid, we don't really talk about this in our school. I don't know if they changed a bit. I don't want to say in my time, because I'm quite young also. It's still quite archaic. So our stand is quite holistic and quite from education to the clinic side of it and the pill side of it.
F'dawn l-aħħar 11 sena kemm ilu l-Partit Laburista fil-Gvern, rajna kambjament kbir. Ħanibdew mill-2011. Fejn daħal id-divorzju. U mbagħad wara żmien tara il-Labor fil-Gvern, daħal iż-żwieġ tal-istess sess. Daħal legalizzazzjoni tal-kannabis. Inti taħseb li l-Partit Laburista huwa partit progressiv jew taħseb li jista' jagħmel ħafna iżjed?
Onestament.
Pinnur?
Iktar għajta bħala pinnur kieku, imma...
Fl-sens?
Fil-sens, like, they're quite opportunistic. Like, where the wind blows, they go. In fact, that's why, for example, select PN is that typically they take more to, like, what their core beliefs are. PL, unfortunately, they're sort of like, go where the wind goes. It's obviously not all are politicians. Like, for example, Cyrus, I think he's one of, like, he's more like vocal in a different way, and he's more progressive compared to the other Labour politicians. I think Labour are just trying to, like, find how they have to adapt it to their modern reality. And they're still quite, from my point of view, so even like as just a regular citizen, I find that they're still trying to figure out where to put their foot in the water. I wouldn't call them progressive, far from it, especially if they were progressive. One regards an abortion actually have actual vocal stance on it, much like trying to sugarcoat and hide away from it. And actually would have to tackle it properly, much half-assed. Same with weed, proper regulations. Actually engage in education campaigns also, like to do it multifaceted, much like just for the sake of the vote, yes. I think in the aspects of divorce and LGBT, they did something really good there, and they should be commended for that, yes. And for weed and the so-called abortion law that they passed, unfortunately, it just highlights how they're not very progressive at all. Give it also, they have a faction maybe within themselves, more progressive, like Cyrus.
Not really outspoken.
Yeah, iktar pala minoranza dik narħajjena. So, I'll happily take, and I still think that we're more progressive in the country, and we're the progressive party, really. So no.
Waħda mill-major concerns, it-top major concern
Iva.
tal-poplu Malti palissa huwa l-immigrazzjoni. Issa,
Ija.
naturalment, l-immigrazzjoni ta' Malta hija differenti minn dak li naraw f'pajjiżi oħra Ewropej. Għax
Definitely.
l-immigrazzjoni tagħna hija waħda legali, ġifieri tuhom il-permezz tal-residenza jiġu jgħixu jaħdmu hawnhekk.
Dik parti mill-problema, mhux just legalization, għandek ukoll il-problema tal-irregular ukoll. Illegal.
Imma Malta, il-kombinazzjoni tkellimt ma' Peppi Jazzopardi hekk fuqha.
Vera?
Semma l-punt illi Malta ma tantx għandna immigrazzjoni irregolari għax aħna qed nibatuhom lura. Ġifieri ġeneralment. Inti nieħdu dal-eżempju tal-immigrazzjoni legali l-ewwel nies. Inti x'taħseb x'inhu l-istanz tal-volt fuq dik immigrazzjoni?
Roughly għandna tnejn. Għandna for low, medium kind of legal migration, which that's the main one we're actually getting ħana Malta. If we want to get this kind of type of migrant, one, they should meet the standards that we have. And also, in the same time, we should be pushing ħana at the same time for reskilling and mhux re-education, naħseb reskilling ta' kelma, for our own local people. So like, why am I saying this? Like, we need to nurture ħana the need for our own people also, the people in Malta, be it Maltese or EU citizen in some or third nationals living in Malta, to actually have the need, the skills, the competence to adapt to the current technological, economical reality we have, rather than the need to depend on importing foreign talent or much talent, labor. At the same time, also, we should be pushing for the types of industries, like more technological based, to one, reduce the need for like a constant high labor. At the same time, we're repurposing the skills we have to still like use the labor force we have right now. So I'm obviously also in favor, for example, on high labor wage, for specialized kind of skills. Like, you know how the EU has the blue card? We believe Malta should also have something like this.
Skills card.
Exactly, skills card, exactly. Like for specialized areas which Malta doesn't really have. So I think like through reskilling, we help reduce the need and dependency on foreign labor from the importation of it, because obviously at this point, like we're so multicultural and interconnected, obviously we'll be having like foreign labor in the country. So, but reskilling is the main thing we have to be pushing for.
Li kieku kellek issemmi l-iżjed policy jew żewġ policies illi l-volti qed jimbutta għal din l-elezzjoni, xi jkunu?
Okay, xi ħaġa sa li ovvjament bħala volt, depending from which state we're in, we're pushing something a bit different.
Għal Malta.
So what I'm pushing personally in Malta, I think, personally for me, it's the biggest policy we should be focusing on now, on establishing a European Citizen Assembly. So why am I saying this? Since Parliament is the one directly, elected from the people, and it should be the one actually to start and initiate the legislation process, I believe that since there is also this bubble, or Brussels bubble, and a bit of a level of disconnect from reality, I think a European Citizen Assembly with a rotating pool of citizens will actually help us as parliamentarians have an understanding of what the reality is actually on the ground, be it socially, be it economically, be it from the periphery state, be it from the mainland, be it from Gozo, be it from Catalonia, whatever,
But how would this work exactly?
It would be in conjunction with Parliament. Like, you know how the Conference on the Future of Europe? Something like that, it will help us establish an agenda, it will help us review the laws we're trying to push through Parliament, and like that we have a level of accountability, transparency, and also like a better communication line, which we don't really have communication in Parliament.
Ġifieri jkun tipo ta' grilling minant iċ-ċittadini
Yes,
stess fuq dawn l-affarijiet.
more of a direct,
All right.
Because we need it, because like one, how many of us can actually say like we actually understand what Parliament or the EU is actually saying, or the terminology that they're using we actually understand, or how can many of us feel like the EU really understands us, or is actually on our doorstep actually understanding us. In Malta, I think for most of us, we feel like the EU doesn't really hear us, or there's a bit of like this barrier between us. I think this would help crack this, shatter this division, and then from there we can actually start tackling more and talking about, the minimum wage, We can actually talk more about the problems we have with, in Malta, chopping down trees, and other countries, deforestation. We can talk more about migration. And obviously, we have policies for this, like one of the policies I'm also, hopefully, I talk about in summer is a common asylum and migration policy for burden sharing. If we're sharing the same border, why the hell aren't we sharing the same responsibility to tackle the burden of it? It's not fair on Malta, on Cyprus, on Italy, etc. Also, I do talk about, for example, a common European army. I do talk about, for example, reforming the institutions themselves.
Semmejt punt interessanti ħabaq fi kliti, semmejt il-Common European Army. Naturalment għaw ħafna eżempju inkluż fil-manifest elettorali tal-Partit Laburista din is-sena, reġgħu semmew l-importanza tan-neutralità. Dan wara li ma jisabu 20 sena fil-manifest tagħhom. Inti taħseb
l-istess partit li l-orb marjat li, eżempju, we care about defense, it's warmongering, but behind closed doors imur jivvota favuru. Ma okay.
Inti x'taħseb fuq il-kunċett tan-neutralità in hindsight, ġifieri ma' din l-istess proposta tal-European Common Army, taħseb li there would be a conflict mal-interess nazzjonali?
Jien naħseb li aħna bħala pajjiż we pick and choose when to be neutral. I think neutrality is a bit outdated nowadays. We chose the lot we're in. We chose to be with European mindset and angle. We've been losing that level of neutrality, I think, for quite some time, in my opinion. The fact we also are in this security sort of union. The EU does have a mutual defense clause and solidarity clause. If something, God forbid, happens to one of the states, Malta has an obligation also. So how can we call ourselves to be neutral? So I think it's a bit outdated and we just pick and choose when to be. Also, we try to be neutral when as if it's this cloak to protect us from even traditional security problems, which we've seen in the past. So it doesn't matter if you're neutral, they still get invaded, some of them. It doesn't really help. At the same time, also, we also have to be realistic that, the current geopolitical reality requires us to also adapt. And it doesn't mean it's that we shift towards caring more about defense. It means we're going to be going to war. Far from it. It just means you have a level of deterrence to protect even your national interests and above all else your people. And unfortunately, I don't really like going into conversations so you have to complain about one of the other two parties or other parties around you. Unfortunately, one party has this mentality that if you care about defense, you're somehow working against the interest of the people, which is far from it. You always have to care about security. Do we leave our doors open at night? No, we close them. So why do we want to have on the door bitċappetti qed jinqalgħu biċċiet il-lok mhux qed jaħdem u mbagħad nippretendu le ta' this illusion insomma that we're okay. Meta recall Malta to solve, for example, from cybersecurity problems. Caring about security also doesn't mean traditionally taħna, we have armed forces only. Also it means invest in cybersecurity infrastructure, investing in AI, for example. So it's quite multifaceted.
Matthias, l-aħħar mistoqsija li għandi għalik. Kieku kellek tagħti appell lin-nies biex din is-sena jivvotaw għall-partit tiegħek. Xi tkun l-appell tiegħek?
Ifhem jekk tridu eżempju politika differenti, politika aktar onesta, ma tidux ifhem jekk taraw eżempju partiti l-oħrajn, they don't really represent you. Why don't you, for example, look into our policies or reach out to me? I do reply to messages quite quickly. I can answer any issues you have. At the same time, this is a European election. We're going to be dealing with European issues. Why don't you vote for the only true European party in the country? Let's vote, If you want alternative kind of politics, more honest, more direct policies are progressive, proactive, pragmatic, that's us. If you're worried about a bit new, let me just remind you that our own MEPs from other countries in Europe who share the same name, share the same manifesto, same values, have actively worked in favor of our country. Again, I mentioned migration from Damien and from Sophie regarding corruption, for example. If you just do a quick search, you'll see them related to Malta. Additionally, a vote for Volt will not just be, because sometimes we hear about this, I only have 6 seats in Parliament. It's not true. Okay, we also have to collaborate with other countries. And with Volt, you have this insurance, you can say, that alongside me, you'll also be having my other colleagues from across Europe who have the same stances, same manifesto, and the same will to ensure Maltese interests are there. So, a vote for me is a vote for your future. Tajjeb.
Thank you ħafna, Matthias. Napprezz ħafna.